for the moms who raised us up, gave us love, and made us strong. For the praying moms who don't always know what to do, but always know who to talk to. For the hurting moms who've loved and lost, but never given up. For those who never got called mom, but who cared for us all like a mom would. For the young moms who became moms sooner than expected and gave it all they had. For the single moms who tirelessly and courageously learned how to do this on their own. For the stepmoms and the stand-in moms who rose to the occasion and loved us well. For the working moms, the stay-home moms, the cooking moms, and the takeout moms, thank you for teaching us how to walk, how to learn, and how to make a difference. For taking care of us when you barely had enough time to take care of yourself. For comforting us when we felt alone and afraid. For lifting us up when others put us down. For the rides, the meals, the laundry, and the birthday parties. For the years, tears, laughter, and love. It's not enough, but we want to say thank you. Thank you for doing for us what we could never do for ourselves. We love you. We honor you. We remember you today. Happy Mother's Day.
So my mom came in a few moments ago and I went to hug her and I could just see in her eyes that something was off. So as I got closer, wrapped my arm around her and I was like, hey, you okay? It's so good to see you. She was like, yeah, I feel like I have a cold. And I wanted to be empathetic. I wanted to sympathize and I wanted to say, oh, but my mind just flooded with memories of this lady over the years. And one in particular, it was about 20 years ago. Christian was a baby. It was the first time that Michelle and I actually took him into a restaurant, and it was a Shoney's. Any Shoney's fans? You remember the breakfast bar? Yeah, like really good. So we went into Shoney's, and we're sitting down, and my mom is with us, and we're tucked in one of these booths. We've had a great meal, great conversation, just loving all over Christian, and my mom's there. It's super cool to just see the generations coming down. Well, one of the servers comes by with a tray, and she puts it on the empty table behind us, cleans it up, and then she leaves and she forgets her tray. Well, on the tray are some napkins, some silverware, and one of those pitchers filled with soda. You know what I'm talking about? That they come around, they usually don't pour it right, they tilt it to the side. I don't know why they do that, but they tilt it to the side. So it's got that picture there, and I'm like, Mom, I dare you. I dare you to take your straw and just turn around and take a drink out of that picture. And she turns around, and she just slurps it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and turns back around. So I'm thinking of that. I'm like, how many germs are passed around in moments like that? So if you see my mom, you know, she's not feeling well today. So she's probably sharing some germs today like she did. I tell you that to let you know, my mom's kind of crazy, just fun. And I have so many memories of her just infusing laughter into our home. I tell you that because Bella, my youngest daughter, she's actually going through, so if you'll pray for her, she's here too. If you'll pray for her, she's going through her midlife crisis at 12. Now, this has nothing to do with hair. This has nothing to do with boys. This has nothing to do with career. She is shook at the idea and the possibility that her children will be born and then start to develop, and they will not have a sense of humor. And I kid you not, it's wrecking this child's life. And I'm like, baby, it's passed down and it's nurtured. So you've got the good genes there. It's all going to work out. Your children are going to be super funny. Don't worry about it. So neat conversations we're having with them. Well, when you think about life, it's not always like that, though, is it? I mean, you think about your life or someone really close to you, or you think about your generations, and what's passed down isn't always positive. And we're actually going to be looking at a story, just a little excerpt. We're going to extract just a few verses from an Old Testament book about the first third of the way through called 1 Samuel. And we're just going to look at chapter 1, just a handful of verses, and it's centered around this lady named Hannah, and some stuff has been passed down to her that's led her to be childless. Like she can't have children. And that's hard enough in and of itself, but to make matters worse, she's actually married to a guy, and we can talk about this some other time, okay, because I know this prompts questions. But she's actually married to a guy who has another wife, and this other wife, she can have children. So it's very antagonistic between these two. And it's not antagonistic from Hannah, but from what's called her rival, this lady who can have children. She actually antagonizes her and provokes her. And the text tells us that her rival provoked her. And that's the word that's used, provoked. And when you keep reading the text, she provokes Hannah simply to irritate her. Like that's her goal in life. That's her primary responsibility, to irritate this other lady who can't have children. So she provokes her. Now, just check in with me, okay? Check in. Do you know what the word provoke means? You don't have to answer out loud, but do you have a good working understanding of it? If you don't, and maybe even if you do, I want to give you like a really good context for this word, okay? This is a very strong, it's a fierce Hebrew word. And you'll remember the Old Testament was written in Hebrew, so we translate it in English from Hebrew. It's a very strong Hebrew word, but here's what I want you to know about it. It's probably got something to do with like the emotional and mental monopoly that something can have on us, whether it's a person, whether it's a circumstance, or a situation we find ourselves in. It is a drain. It's a strain. And it causes some very intense emotions. So I thought I'd read a little here for you about the word provoke. And I thought there's no better theologian to help us out other than Luke Combs. Anybody know the theologian Luke Combs? Do you know his song, Hurricane? Listen to these words. And this is the second time I've talked to you about country music. It's not even my favorite genre, but when a country song is done well, it's good. And when it's not done well, it's bad. Well, I like Luke Combs, and here's one of his songs. It's called Hurricane. Listen to this language. Oh, I wish I could sing it. I wish I could sing it in his voice. I'm going to have to read it, okay? Then you rolled in with your hair in the wind, baby, without warning. I was doing all right, but just your sight had my heart stormed. The moon went hiding, stars quit shining, rain was driving, thunder, lightning. You wrecked my whole world when you came and hit me like a hurricane. This word provoke is actually a hurricane-style word. And this is the only time in the entire Old Testament where this Hebrew word is used to refer to something other than a literal storm. So the author is intentional about describing just how upset Hannah is. This is wrecking her whole world. There's a storm inside of her. It's upsetting. And from the other woman's perspective, she's irritating her. But in Hannah's mind and her heart, there's this monopoly of her emotions that's occurring. And this is all she can think about. It's like it's consuming her. Well, that's the context of this story. So Hannah has this experience where she's having a meal with some people. And there's this great 3-word phrase that pops up when you're reading this story. And it's against the backdrop of this storm in her life. Now, time out. Why I love this story is because whatever's going on in your life about children, every single one of us have felt that being wrecked feeling. That sense where there's something that's captivated us and it's not positive. And maybe it's been passed down from someone, maybe passed down from someone very important to us. And it's captivated us. and not in a good way. And we've got a storm going on in our lives. Well, what do you do with that kind of content? What do you do with that kind of experience? How do you get through? How do you navigate this torrential storm? What are the options available to us? What do we do that honors God? What's going to be most productive? Do I actually have any options other than the ones available? Do I have any more options? How do I do this? So when you think about children, I want to set the stage for this very plainly and specifically. When you think about children in the ancient world, they were important for three primary reasons. Number one, it was a very agrarian culture. So the more children, the more laborers you had to work the land. So you had farmers in your own family. The second reason, the more children you had, the better odds were for you that later in life, you would be cared for. And then also, and this was a very, very high Jewish thought, the more children you had, the ability you had to actually contribute to the survival, not of your family, but of the entire nation. So having children was basically the identity of any woman in the ancient world. And to not have children, you were basically looked at as useless. You had no value. And internally, you were describing yourself as hopeless. There's no sense of direction. Without children, you lose your compass for the future. There's no metric to measure your life. So it's that context, that's the backdrop of this story with Hannah, where we read the next word. She's having this meal, she's being provoked, there's a storm going on in her life, and then these three words we read, Hannah got up. Isn't that empowering? Hannah got up. And if you have one of those Bibles that has commentary in it or study notes, I bet one of the authors would tell you something like this. This is a phrase that wasn't just Hannah, oh, I've had enough food for the day. You know, it was a great meal. I'm going to excuse myself and go tend to some responsibilities. No, this is a very decisive action. This is an intentional movement on Hannah's part. She got up, and in doing so, she takes the first steps to leading herself. And I tell you, like I've told you before, when you think of your life, you think of the lives of the people that's involved in your life, whatever's going on in their lives, whatever's going on in your lives, you will always be the hardest person you will ever lead. I don't know why it always works that way. I've been a pastor for a long time, and I've had the honor of sitting across the table from a lot of people. And a lot of people have given me the trust to share what goes on behind the scenes of their lives. And I treat that with care. And I've had many moments where I've done some pastoral care and people share with me their struggle and what's going on. And I offer this advice that seems to be well taken. And it actually helps them move themselves and their families forward in life. And then I find myself in a very comparable situation. I think about the same advice, and it's much more challenging to implement that into my own life. You will always be the hardest person you will ever lead, and here's why. You're not always going to be responsible for what happens to you. There's going to be some stuff that happens in your life and my life that is just simply unnecessary and it's unfair. What goes on, you are not responsible for it. However, I, as well as you, I am always responsible for what I do with what has happened to me. That is my responsibility. So Hannah steps up into her reality, and she has this intense ownership of her life where she's being provoked and she's being viewed as useless, and internally has this storm just surging through her life. And she gets up. Now, at Madison Hills, we've got a lot of people who have learned how to get up in the storms of life. And we actually have one with us this morning, and she's going to come up on stage with us. And she is an individual that I've spent some time with, and I've got to hear her story, listen to her story, and I realized, wow, this individual right here exemplifies the idea of getting up. So if you don't mind, will you join me in welcoming Meredith, our very own Meredith Chandler, to the stage. Got it. So Meredith and I, we've had many conversations, and listening to Meredith talk and listening to her story, I thought, this is fantastic content, and this would be extremely valuable for Madison Hills. So Meredith, would you mind to share just a little about your story so that we're all on the same page?
Yeah. Hi, like David said, my name is Meredith Chandler. I'm married to the wonderful man in the back. That's who was hosting this morning. Wes and I have been married for almost 12 years. On our first wedding anniversary, right before, I woke up in some very extreme pain, and we went to the hospital, and we found a cyst or tumor the size of a goose egg on one of my ovaries. So we were thinking it was ovarian cancer right from the beginning. But then God moved, and we went to, right before we went to start cancer treatment, we went to another doctor, and they think that it wasn't cancer, but we think that it was something called endometriosis. And so right on mine and Wes's first wedding anniversary, I underwent surgery and was diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis at 23. And we were told then that I probably wasn't going to be able to have any kids at all. So we went under treatment and waited about 2 years. And then they said, let's try and go to a fertility specialist and let's see what they say. Round after round of doctors, they said it's probably not going to happen, but they said, we think that you're a perfect candidate to either adopt or undergo in vitro fertilization. And Wes and I talked about it and prayed about it, and we said adoption was going to be the best option for us. Because we love, we adopt all of our animals. That's what we knew, that adoption. And if you all don't know, that's what I work in the school system, and so that's what I see so many kids that need a loving and good home. So adoption was the part that we were going to start. So we start the process to adopt, and one day I started feeling really sick, felt very funny. Also, if you know this about me, I love a good glazed donut. That is one thing that brings joy into my life very quickly, and that is a glazed donut. My friend brought in glazed donuts. It was the first couple of days of school, and she said, we just need a good pick-me-up. A donut made me sick. And my immediately thought was, I'm dying. That's what, something is seriously wrong if I cannot eat a good glazed donut. And my friend who brought that to me, she looked at me and she said, maybe you're pregnant, and turned around and walked off. And I started counting, and I was like, started counting again. Something was wrong here. And come to find out, I actually was pregnant. And so we had to pause the process to adopt. Then, went through the first ultrasound. Everything was fine. Then by the second ultrasound, there was no heartbeat. So the grief of that is something that we have been continuously working through. But we're getting there. Yeah, we're getting there. But it's, to me, I feel like one of the biggest things is we have labels and identifiers for people who lose spouses. We have an identifier for people who have lost their parents. But do we have an identifier for people who have lost children? So I kind of lump us all up into the invisible parenthood club. Because if you look at Wes and I, you don't see our kids. Sorry. But they're there. So.
Well, I know this has been your experience has been very emotional for you. So can you tell us a little bit about how you've connected with God?
Yeah. So when the first initial, you go through the 5 stages of grief. Let's just say the anger was very, very strong at that point in time. So, like Jesus tells us to not sin out of anger, and if there was anything that to help, that causes you to anger, you cut it off and you throw it away. So the first thing I did was I got rid of all my social media. So when people ask me, we can't find you on Facebook, there's a specific reason why, because I had to cut it off and throw it away, because I was sitting out of anger with that. So I took care of that, but there was a book that someone recommended to me when I first started going through grief counseling, and it was called He Remembers the Barren. And the part that I kept saying was, nobody understands how I feel. But it was a very humbling God moment that when I read, it said, God the Father knows how I feel. Because I love you so much, I willingly gave my child up for your salvation. And that was a swift kick in the pants that I needed to be able just to, okay, someone does know how I feel. And that is how I am able to, I understand the love of my mother and my mother-in-law, who I'm very thankful for everything that they've done for me and for any mother figure, you know, in our society today. But to me, the love of God, I was able to grasp it just a little bit better, because I don't know if I was willing to give up my children for the love like Abraham did. I don't know how he did it. And that's something that if someone else were in my situation, would they love God enough to be willing to give their children back?
That's well said, very well said. Well, is there anything that you would like us to know that we could take with us?
Some of the verses that David was actually talking about was one. But Daniel, I'm sure all of us have either listened to the VeggieTales version, but Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that is one of my absolute favorite stories in the Bible. And that was probably the verse that I was like, okay, everything's going to be all right. And it is, and if not, he is still good. Even though I'm in the fire, he's with me. And if I don't come out of the fire, it's okay.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this. I think this is empowering for other people. See that we all have different stories and struggles and storms going on. And I usually say this toward the start of the sermon, but I wanted to save it for this moment. Welcome to Madison Hills, a place where no matter what storm you're navigating, we see you and we're available. Meredith, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I'm gonna get all my stuff together.
That was fantastic.
Thank you.
That was good. So with the hour and a half we have left, I want to give you two thoughts to wrestle with and then a very clear opportunity. And both of these thoughts come from 1 Samuel 1. And the first thought is I want you to give, but I want you to give this to God. I want you to give this to God. So as the story of Hannah unfolds, something really cool happens. After she gets up, she actually goes and prays. And when you read through chapter 1, you'll see that when Hannah is praying and she describes her prayers, it's raw. It's real. Now, we're going to be talking about prayer in detail in a couple of weeks, but just let me put this plug right now. If you struggle with prayer, I want you to know the best thing in the world you can do is simply be raw and real. If you struggle with prayer, simply tell God how you are feeling. So Hannah prays in anguish. She's pouring her life out to her Father in heaven. And in doing so, she says, Father, I simply want you to remember me. And the story goes on. You'll see it on the screen here. And she says, I'm going to give my child to you, but there's something really important I don't want you to miss. Then she drops this note about how no razor will ever touch his head. Now, you emerging Bible scholars in the group, you'll recognize this as what in the Old Covenant was called a Nazirite vow. This is where a parent would intentionally dedicate their child to the Lord. And I learned it as no bick, no booze, no body. In other words, if you were going to take the Nazirite vow, you would never shave your head, so no bick razor. If you're going to take the Nazirite vow, you were never allowed to drink, so no booze, okay? So I just saw a lot of you roll your eyes, okay? Don't have any Nazirites today, okay? So third one was you could not come in contact with a dead body, thus no body. So in doing so, this is remarkable in Hannah's story. She's childless, and she's being provoked, and she wants a child. And she pours her heart out to God and says, if you'll remember me and give me a child, I will give him right back to you. Again, there's some struggles and storms that just have a monopoly on our emotions and our mental status. And it's that you need to give over to your God. So the thing with Hannah is she's literally taking her situation, this thing that she wants rectified, this situation, this storm, and she's literally handing it over to her God. I don't know how that works theologically. I just know it works. because after Hannah does this, she moves forward. She starts stepping into her days intentionally. So if that's you, again, theologically, I'm not sure how this works. I just know that you and I serve an amazing God who can step into our lives and help us navigate the storms that we turn over to Him. So my question for you is, what do you need to turn over? What do you need to give to our God? What is this for you? And if you need help identifying that or implementing some kind of spiritual strategy to help address that, take one of those cards in the chair before you. Just fill out a note, drop me a note, fold it up, and put it in the box in the back, and I'll get in touch with you ASAP, and we can work toward that. Second thing is, I want you to give this to your family. I want you to give this to your family, and this is something very specific. You read toward the end of 1 Samuel chapter 1, and something fantastic happens. Actually, Hannah has a child, and there's this big festival, big event that everybody is supposed to rush and engage, and they're supposed to be present and go through all of the red tape of being involved in this ritual. Well, Hannah simply tells her husband, Elkanah, the text tells us that Elkanah is ready to go, and the text tells us that Hannah did not go. She stayed back. Well, that's the first hint or detail that they've probably got a really good working culture in their family. She didn't go, and it's no big deal. Have you seen that video on YouTube Shorts or TikTok or Facebook Reels? It's fantastic. It's this husband and wife, this couple. They pull up into their driveway, and their driveway has just a little tilt to it. And they get out, and I think they have coffee and a few bags of groceries. And as they're getting out, they slip, both of them at different times, and they drop everything they have. And the wife simply says, I'm going to go in and start dinner. And he says, and I'm going to clean this mess up. And then when you read the comments of those videos, it's amazing to see how people say, oh, I wish I had that in my relationship, where there's not a big deal when there's not a big deal. Something small happens and it's okay. We'll deal with it. We'll cover it. We'll make the best of it. Some of us have never, ever had that kind of safety and protection in our family. So Hannah doesn't go. And it's no big deal. And the text goes on, and Elkanah comes to her, and he simply drops this phrase. He says, all right, do what seems best to you. Isn't that amazing? Do what seems best to you. Wouldn't you just love to have someone in your life who is extremely close to you, who was probably involved in your life on a daily basis, who when you locked eyes with them, they were all about helping you do what seems best for you? That's amazing. This makes me think about 15 years, something like that ago. Michelle and I were in some kind of storm in our lives. And I just remember, I don't even remember the context. I just remember Michelle simply said to me, she was like, hey, this is all I remember from the whole scenario. Will you be on my side? Will you be on my side? And ever since that day in pre-marriage counseling and in reinforced in weddings, I always drop this line. After your honeymoon, the morning after your honeymoon, when you wake up, your heads pop off those pillows, and you see that person laying beside of you, you must know that no other person on this planet is more important than that individual. Your spouse becomes the most important person on the planet to you. You are always on their side. You're creating this culture in your family where do what seems best to you. I know you're thinking through this. I'm here to support you. I'm here to help empower you because I know you're doing the same for me. And that, man, we've got a great, well-oiled machine going here with that kind of love and respect. That is phenomenal. So shortly after that, that's when I've told you before, I got out my trusty whiteboard and some markers, different colored markers too. I was really on fire that day. So I get this out and I sit down with Michelle and I'm like, we need direction to our family. We need a purpose. We need intentionality. So here's what we're going to do, like any leader does. We're going to do a values audit in our family. So we wrote down like almost 100 words of things that were important to us. And then we started whittling that list down, circling words that were very similar to the other words and thinking which word drove the conversation of this group of words. And then we identified 4 values that were super important to us. Then we actually wrote out a mission statement for our family. And some of you are like, wow, you're a really weird person. I get it. But it worked. It worked for us. But the thing that we walked away from that meeting was we both kind of landed on this idea that family, our family, is going to be the safest place you will ever live. For everyone in our family, this is going to be the safest place you will ever live. I love this story because you're facing some storms. Some of us are facing some high winds of life, and you need someone who is on your side, who is saying, what's best for you in this moment? How can I serve you as we navigate this storm? Because this is the safest place you will ever live. So again, I want you to reach out to me if you need help giving this to God. And I want you to give your family, the people that you do life with, that you're closest to, give them the safest place they'll ever live. You up for that? All right, last thing. Past 2 years, we have crushed this, okay? Past 2 years, we have crushed this. And this is another practical opportunity for you and I to make a phenomenal difference in someone's life that we will probably never, ever, ever meet. And I think that is beautiful service. We did so well that Sarah told me from Affirm, she said the past 2 years, we've actually upped our giving both years. And last year was our highest total ever. So that's phenomenal. So I told her, I was like, well, don't tell anybody in here. I'm telling you, I'm like, give us more bottles and let's see what happens. So we've got more bottles too, but if you hadn't gotten one of these on the way in, on the way out, will you please take one of these? And all you have to do is fill it up with cash, coins, anything like that. Or if you're very techy and you've just got to do things online, you've got everything on auto pay, there's a QR code you can scan. You can do it online and digitally fill this up as well. But you think we can knock these out of the park again this year and even go higher? Yeah, I do too. I think we got this. Okay, pray with me. Father, you are good. You're God. We acknowledge that. And we thank you so much for creating a place here at Madison Hills where this spiritual family can come together in the safest place we'll ever worship. And we can be present with you and like-minded individuals. And Father, in this moment, we want to give our best shot at giving you our this and turning some of this emotional and mental strain over to you and allowing you to do something in our lives that we just can't explain. Where you come in, change, you shift our problems into a sense of peace, and you give us direction, and you help us to navigate what we're going through. We praise you and we thank you for that. And right now, we want to turn that over to you. And for some of us, that's engaging this prayer right now. And for some of us, that's filling out that card in front of us and dropping it in the box. And for some of us, that's seeing a connection, someone we need to converse with after this service. And then, Father, we ask you to give us the clearest direction we've ever experienced for our family, those under our roof, those we do life with, and show us how to be on each other's side, to empower each other as we seek to honor what is best in our lives and create the safest place we'll ever live. And God, we want to do this because this is all wrapped up in who you are and in your way. So we thank you, Father, for everything you're doing in our lives and in the life of this. And we know you're good because of your Son, Jesus. So as always, we use his name to pray.